Okay, so we're looking at chapter 2. Remember in chapter 1 we talked about, why we would want to study intercultural communication and what exactly culture is. So something that I've said and I will say many times is there is not one specific way to be an effective, a competent communicator. So that's why the word flexibility is really important in this chapter. So we need to understand that there are we can't learn one way of behaving and that will help us in every situation with every person. So oh my gosh, I'm tripping over my own words. In order to understand intercultural flexibility, okay, let's take a look at this chapter. So, what we're going to do, and if you can see the on the right hand side, the 4 bulleted points means I'm going to divide this chapter into 4, possibly more because the sections are long, but I'm going to try for 4 15-minute sections. So, first, we're going to define exactly what we mean by intercultural communication, and we're going to look at its characteristics. Then, we're going to look at the 3 content components and the 3 criteria and how do we assess if we're being flexible. Then we're going to look at a staircase model that looks at 4 different stages that we might be in developing intercultural communication. And then last of all, we're going to look at what does it mean to be a mindful intercultural communicator. And oops, I went too far. That's fine. Okay. So intercultural communication, the book likes to use ICC because typing out intercultural communication can be too long, refers to a symbolic exchange process between 2 or more individuals from different cultural communities as they attempt to negotiate shared meaning in an interactive situation within an embedded societal system. And so you probably went, huh? All right. So then they have this interesting diagram that helps to explain it a little bit. So you've got these. Let's see if I can do this. These gray lozenges are the communicators. And what's happening is they are involved in a symbolic exchange process. We're going to define exactly what we mean by symbolic and exchange process, okay? And what happens is person A is coming to this communication with their own culture, and person B is coming with their own culture. And so what they have to do is, okay, let's see. Okay, I'll take it from, we're going to look at what does it mean by the communication context. We're going to look at intercultural expectations. People, they have certain expectations when they come to this interaction. They have certain perceptions. Both of these are influenced by their respective cultures. Okay, they have to, in exchange, they have to negotiate meaning. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Tons of vocabulary, tons of theory. Let's break it down. Okay, what do we mean by a symbolic exchange? Well, when they're talking about symbols, it means that we're using verbal and nonverbals. So the verbals means words. Verbals means, that sounds weird. If verbal means words, whether they're the written word or the spoken word, and the nonverbal, if you've taken interpersonal communication, you know that nonverbal is huge. It's talking about the gestures that we use, the posture that we use, the distance that we maintain, the clothing, and maybe under etc. I should have even written the emojis that we use if it happens to be in the online environment. Okay, to be an exchange, it has to have at least 2 individuals, could be more, and the ultimate outcome is that they achieve shared meaning. You don't want people talking at cross purposes to each other. Okay, there's 6 characteristics. Well, what does it mean by the process? Okay, again, if you've taken interpersonal, a lot of this will be familiar to you. That the people are interdependent. These are 2 people who not always, but at least in this exchange, I depend on you, you depend on me. You could be colleagues, you could be friends, you are someone in a grocery store who is trying to have an interaction with someone. Okay. It doesn't mean that you have to have a super close relationship, but you do depend on that other person. It is transactional, meaning that as I am communicating to you, at this very same time you are communicating to me. So, for example, I'm speaking and you don't understand what I'm saying, so you look confused. So it's people used to think that it was more like a tennis game. I said something to you, the ball gets over to your side of the tennis court, and you say something to me, and you shoot it back, like kind of as writing a letter or sending a text. And actually, especially if we're communicating face to face, we're both communicating simultaneously. That's what it means by transactional. And it is irreversible. There is no way for you to ever take something back. Once something is out there, it's out there. I don't have personal experience with this as far as I know, but if you've ever, you hear about people, especially in the realm of people in the public eye, politicians, actors, actresses, I don't know, social, what do you call them? Influencers who maybe years ago posted something and it disappeared. Maybe they even deleted it from their account, but as long as someone has a copy of it, it's out there. Like, you can never take it back. Okay. Oops. I gotta get back. There we go. Obviously, because it's intercultural, we have different cultural communities. So what do we mean by a cultural community? We tend to think, when we're thinking about culture, we tend to think about national cultural groups. I'm American. Gufran is Syrian or Syrian American. I still don't know everyone's background. Let's see, Saadia is Algerian. Okay, so that's what we tend to think of. Sometimes we think of ethnic groups where we might say, okay, I am Ukrainian American and someone else is Italian American. Well, I am also. Or German American. Okay. It could be a gender group. It could even, we don't usually think about this when we're looking at the big intercultural, but it could even be you are a snowboarder, and so there's a very specific snowboarding culture, and you're talking to someone who is not a part of that culture. They happen to be in an out group. There might be difficulties communicating because they don't understand all of the language that you speak. I think I shared in my biography that I enjoy power tools, and if I say, "Ooh, my favorite is a 12-inch sliding compound miter," you have no idea what I'm talking about unless you are a member of that community. Okay, and people within that community tend to have shared beliefs and values. And we talked about beliefs and values when we talked about chapter 1, and it's worth coming back to, of course. Okay. So the goal in this communication is to negotiate shared meanings. Okay. And there are 3 meanings that the textbook talks about. There's the content meaning, which tends to be the words that we're used, the words that we are using. For example, it could be come in and sit down. Okay. The relational meaning. So for me, I don't make a big, and maybe I'm wrong on this one, please correct me. I'm going to mush together relational meaning and identity meaning, because relational meaning is all about the relationship that exists between the communicators. But the identity meaning is not just who am I, but who are we in this interaction. And to me, that gets at the relationship between communicators. So the content meaning tends to be communicated by the words, and the relational meaning and the identity meaning tends to be communicated non-verbally. So if I say, come in and sit down, I could say it, hi, come in and sit down. And you're thinking, oh, she's excited to see me. But what if I say, come in and sit down? Then you say, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. So what's the relationship between us? Okay, in both of them, it could be, faculty member and student. And in the identity meaning maybe is one person has power and the other person doesn't. Okay. But ultimately, we're trying to make sure we're on the same page in terms of meanings. Okay. The interactive situation has to do with, all right, relational context, not content this time, but context. So we have relational context, which we kind of talked about, the relationship between us, the psychological context, the mood, maybe our perceptions, how we expect people to behave because of who they are, and the physical context, where we are. Are we in the classroom? Is the classroom set up in circles? Or is it set up in rows? Are we online? So kind of the relational context is maybe who are we? How are we feeling? And where are we? Okay. And the last, oops, man, I'm just clicking too fast. Okay. The last one, I don't know that the book does a great job explaining the societal embedded system. Okay. So when we are communicating with someone else, it's never as simple as I am me and you are you, because we each, there is what they call, there's multi-layered context. There's the history, the politics, our social class, digital media, community context. There's a whole lot going on behind the scenes, so to speak. And what we each bring to the interaction is going to shape it's going to shape the process, how we interact, it's going to shape the outcome. So there's actually a really interesting theory called social ecological theory. Do you have to have this memorized? No, but it is definitely part of social phenomena, the idea that we are influenced by our culture. Okay, so I just have trouble with his name. Yuri Brofenbrenner was a big name in this, and basically what he's saying is, all right, let me read this and then I'll explain it. There's a complex interplay between between individual factors, relationship factors, community factors, and societal factors. So we are never just an individual. When I'm interacting with one of you, what's part of it is not just, well, I'm Marjorie and you are Owen. Okay, well, what's our relationship? Okay, well, I'm the professor and you're the student, but maybe we're also neighbors, or maybe he went to school with my son, or so there, or maybe he slashed my tires, whatever it is, there's that relationship there. Sorry, Owen. There's also the community factors, like where we live. Maybe we might think of our community, it could be we're thinking as our community as Tunxus, what's going on there. And then there are the bigger societal factors. So you just think about, let me go back. All of this goes into what we maybe think it should just be a simple exchange. We're saying, hello, how are you? But our tone of voice was off, or we made prolonged eye contact, or we didn't make eye contact, or in the culture that I'm from, the relationship, I expect that I am the one who initiates, and you don't say hello unless I say hello first. So it's basically, this first part was in a way to say there's a lot that goes into communicating between any people, but when we bring in the intercultural communication, it gets even more complicated. Okay.